Good morning, Luke.
Morning, how are you?
Okay. Yeah, just reading the odd news about the decline in business due to the curfew.
Oh yeah, don't even go there. I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, certainly talking to people locally, a lot of the high street establishments where I live have said they've seen almost a 30-40% drop in footfall with the new regulations, which is not what the industry needs at the moment, if I'm brutally honest.
No, and all it's doing is pushing people into the streets to mingle between each other. So it's not really helping.
Well, I think the mockery of the government slogan is now order more, drink faster, leave earlier, or something along those lines.
Yeah, no, it's
so yeah, it's not good by any stretch of the imagination at the moment.
Yeah, it's hard to tell though, because the graphs are totally different now from April. I mean, because they're testing more people, the amount of infections is going way high, but the actual deaths seems to be staying lower. So it's which is a good thing, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think what we need to remember is it's all about testing. The only reason we're like this is because we've done far more testing, shall we say? So
yeah.
Morning.
Welcome to the forum for the first time.
Hello.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Fine.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. Things starting to look a little bit busier on the horizon these days.
The last week's just been crazy, which is great, but I think there's still a lot of uncertainty out there, isn't there?
Yes. It's I mean, the government doesn't help at all.
No.
They just breed uncertainty. But
I think they're more of a hindrance than a help, to be honest. Morning, all.
Hey.
Morning.
Robin.
Morning, Ian. Morning, Stephen.
Morning,
Kevin.
Morning, Stephen.
Morning, folks.
Morning,
How
you
you
right?
doing?
Morning.
How's the weather around your place? We have some sunshine down here in Bristol.
Wet.
A bit wet.
It is, Robin, it is.
Very pleasant here in the Midlands.
Yeah.
Foggy start in the northwest, but it's brightening up now. So
Good. How about the Black Country, Jan? Is it sun shining over there?
Oh, it's busting over here, mate.
Is it?
Yeah, the sun's out. I speak very poshly now. What was that, Kevin?
I said the sun's out here and all.
Is it?
Oh,
It's busting out.
cool, Connie.
Apologies to all of you from across the UK that don't understand any of my accent there.
I always laugh when I know a lot of foreign people, and I always laugh at the fact they come here and they've learnt English, and when they get here they don't actually understand what anybody's saying. Depending on which part of the country they're in, so I have to learn the whole thing again.
Yeah, that works both ways, Robin. I, as a student, I spent a bit of time doing work experience in Paris, and I still to this day remember arriving in Charles de Gaulle Airport quite cockily thinking, I've done my higher French, I've done a bit of this, I've been to Calais, I can speak French. And standing in Charles de Gaulle Airport thinking, I don't know what these people are speaking, but it's not French. That was the first day of a long 10 months that I was to spend there.
When I first arrived in Barcelona, I heard people talking, and I thought they were actually talking Polish or Romanian. It wasn't until I actually spent a little time there that I actually realized it was the Catalan. local language for Catalonia. And as you get used to it, you kind of think, well, actually, yeah, it is very similar to the Spanish and the French and everything, because it's a Latin-based one. But to start with, it was just totally out of it.
I always remember when I took my wife back to my mum and dad's pub, which is in the Black Country, and she stood by me all night long going, "What did he say? What did he say?"
We're used to that in
I
our
love
household.
accents, love language.
Yeah.
My other half comes from the Western Isles, and I wouldn't say he's got a particularly strong accent. Well, probably because I'm used to it after 6 years. But people really struggle with that. We just get that look of, huh? Whenever he says anything, people just cannot. And it's the same look on everybody's face when we all first meet up. They just go, huh? And most people think he's Irish.
Hello, good morning.
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 Morning, all.
Morning.
Morning, Julian.
Morning,
Good
Julian.
morning. How are we doing?
Morning, Julian.
Morning.
Good, good.
Hi, Jimmy.
Morning,
Greetings from
Julian. I
sunny-
didn't see you
sunny
sneak in.
Stevenage.
Terry, morning, Martin. Mark,
Morning all.
Morning,
Good
all.
morning.
Neil.
I need to
Morning,
apologise just now. I'll probably have to nip out and then I'm still waiting on another member of staff coming in. So I'm going to be up and down like a yo-yo, I think.
That's all right. Well, nearly there.
Morning.
Morning.
Morning, David.
Hi there, David.
Quite a lot to talk about today, thanks to the government.
You busy?
Right.
Not many people that are using that phrase at the moment, Robin.
What?
Well, they are. But,
Yeah. Yes, it was a sort of sarcastic sort of thanks to the government.
I think it's the distinction between being busy, Julian, and being productive. I think.
you know, that was good. That was good that you didn't use the phrase "busy fool" there, Barry. Though I know it was on the tip of your tongue.
Yeah, I made that mistake yesterday. I wasn't going to repeat.
Morning, guys.
Morning.
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 How are you?
Okay.
Good.
Good.
I'd like to share with you all that it's beautiful and sunny up here in Dundee. I hope you're at least having a sunny morning wherever you are.
Yeah.
Dublin is lovely too.
I'll just lie and say yes.
I wish I could say the same, Terry, but Glasgow seems to be bathed in a thick blanket of fog at the moment, so I can barely see across
maybe
the road.
it's coming your way, Barry. I was down that neck of the woods yesterday, and it was a bit mixed. But I think it brightened up in the afternoon when I was leaving. Maybe it was glad to see the back end of me. I don't know.
Yeah, don't take it personally.
Right then, welcome everybody. Another forum, another 2 weeks have gone by. Seems like time flies these days. So quite a busy week with our government deciding what other trials and tribulations they're going to throw at us. Looking at the news and talking to people, I think they say that more or less sales have dropped by about 25 to 30% due to that wonderful curfew that they've put in. David passed me some figures this morning, and interesting to note that year on year, the OTAs seem to be losing market share to their own websites. So that's good to hear. Hotels making the most of their websites. Hopefully we'll pick up some good ideas from Sarah in a while for that as well. But first of all, we'll go straight over to Luke, who's just going to give us a quick update on what they've been throwing at us this week. Just a minute.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So for those of you that don't know me, I haven't met, I run Athena Group International. We're a specialist consultancy, been doing a lot of work with the NHS and private sector around essentially COVID-19 and translating what the government says into practical, simple, easy to understand advice, which I know is sometimes hard and challenging. So I'm just going to share my screen for a second. Hopefully you can all see the screen.
Yep.
So just to set some context, this is as of Monday, and I know one of the biggest questions we're being asked at the moment is, why is this such an issue? Why are all of these changes being made? So I think just to set some context, we identified through that testing of going up. But what's really good to see on the bottom two graphs is actually the number of people in hospital is staying pretty flat and has done since July. And the same with the deaths. Between July and September, it stayed pretty level. We're starting to see a slight peak towards the end of September, but we also need to understand that these are deaths where COVID is one of the conditions. It's not where COVID is the main condition. So you can die from a heart attack. If they do the post-mortem, they find COVID, you then get attributed to being a COVID-19 death. It's one of the remaining flaws in the government's current way of statistical reporting. So moving on. So one of the big changes has been face coverings. So I'm sure you're all doing this already, but just as a reminder, any customers within a hospitality venue now have to wear a face covering by law, except when they're actually sat at the table eating their food or having a drink. Hotels, this includes when they're checking in, moving through public areas, even when you're in the toilet now. The expectation is that you wear a face covering because obviously it's difficult to social distance in a toilet. One of the other interesting things as well is spas and leisure facilities. So those of you that may have a swimming pool, may have a spa attached, or a gym, again, the same regulations apply unless you're actually physically exercising or you're showering or you're in the water swimming, then again, the expectation is that guests are wearing face masks. One of the slight differences is if you do any fitness classes at your venues, the regulations are slightly different, but those people running the fitness classes should be following the relevant guidance. The other thing is all staff now have to wear face coverings whilst they are at work. And this is not just in hospitality, but this is in retail. This is anywhere where there is a service being provided to the public. And that is for the duration of their shift. The exemptions around if you have an underlying health condition, those are still in play, those are still in force. But obviously now it is legal. So members of the public can be fined. You as an owner operator can be fined if you're found to not be compliant. Food and beverage services. So the key changes are obviously if you're selling food or drink, you've got to be closed between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. The advice, and this isn't actually you must do, this is an advice, is that if you do have a bar or you do serve food between 10 and 5 a.m. to residents, that it's room service only. So the days of keeping the bar open for residents only, they have now gone. So you cannot physically serve any food or beverage in a public area after 10 o'clock. Those of you that may have decided to change your operations slightly and possibly operate a takeaway service to local residents as an additional income stream, you can still continue to do that after 10 p.m, but it has to be delivery only. You can't have people turning up and picking up food from the venue. The other big change now is everything has to be done table service. So all food, all drink, breakfast has to be served at the guest table by staff, and orders have to be taken at the table. So for those of you that haven't already looked at some kind of app or another way to order, now's the time to do it. And also, all food and drink must be consumed at the customer's table. So if you have customers going out for a cigarette, they can't take the drink outside with them. They have to leave all their food and drink at the table. And one of the other things that's come up from talking to contacts within the industry is there needs to be a way to rethink how you take payment, because the old days of taking a chip and pin machine to the table to get the customer to pay, one, you're putting yourself in close contact to the customer, but then you have to go through the palaver of sanitizing your chip and pin machine between every single customer. And you'll always get the ones that won't want to stay at the table, will want to come up to the bar and pay, or so on and so forth. So again, it's just rethinking your own individual ways of working around taking payments. Track and trace. So big news this week is the NHS's Track and Trace Act has gone live. The requirement now is that all businesses have to have the NHS recognised QR code. So the venues collecting their own information using their own systems has now gone out of the window. The reason for this is so that all of the information is held centrally. It avoids you then getting into a potential GDPR situation where you're not storing customers' information, you're not holding lots of information you don't need to know or don't necessarily want to hold. So the request is that all legacy individual systems are phased out and everybody's...
Holly, how are you? Oh, I'm good, thank you. I was just phoning up to find out if there was any like chance to get a nail repaired either today or tomorrow. Oh, amazing. It is. Sorry, I should have said. Sorry.
Just a sec. I can't find who it is.
Would there be anything like, I'm just trying to, what times do you have available today?
Hey, Lauren, we can hear you.
Sorry.
Do you know what? 11:30 would be actually perfect. That'd be absolutely perfect.
More than 6.
Yeah, it's just one that's just popped off.
Look. Hello, Lauren.
Oh, fab. Thanks so much. See you in a bit. Bye.
Somebody's speaking. Can they go on mute?
So there's a question just come in from Christian. NHS Scotland, I believe, has their own version of the app. So I would go onto the website and have a look. Obviously, Barry can probably fill you in more on that, but I know they are looking to change it to make it uniform across the board. The other change is enforcement, and this is possibly a big shock to everybody. You as a venue owner can now be charged up to £10,000 in fines if you're not following the guidance, if you're not following the COVID secure guidance. But the thing to remember with that is the £10,000 is if you are guilty of multiple breaches. And Francesco, yes, I know we're behind the curve as far as Ireland's concerned. They are a lot further ahead of us. The other change as well is it's now an offence if you encourage a member of staff to come into the workplace who may be symptomatic. Because quite a lot of employers were pushing employees to come in if they had cough, cold symptoms, even though the employee was saying, I might have COVID, I need to go get a test. So now, again, if you are found to be doing that, there is enforcement action that can be taken against the individual workplace. And the onus now is on you as the business owner and on your staff to make sure people are wearing masks. Now, a lot of venues have gone down the approach of security on the front door, no mask, no come in approach. Obviously, individual venue choice, but just remember the onus is actually now on you as a venue owner to enforce, not the police and not the local authority. So just before I finish, so meetings is one of the big questions that's been asked a lot of. So you can still have support groups meeting in your venue, but they've now got to be limited to a maximum of 15 people. So this can be knitting clubs, mother and baby clubs, Alcoholics Anonymous, pregnancy support meetings. They can still go ahead. Work meetings, educational events, training can still continue in public venues, so you can still continue to run those meetings, but you have to follow the COVID secure guidelines, and absolutely no more than 30 people in the room. Just for clarity, that 30 people includes anybody external coming in to deliver the training. So if you have 2 trainers, you can only have 28 people from a workplace, as an example. Weddings, civil partnership ceremonies, for those of you that do it, and the subsequent receptions, yes, you can continue to do those, but again, maximum of 15 people, no more. And then the only difference is other significant standalone life events are now subject to the rule of 6. So christenings, baptisms, the only exception is funerals. Still trying to get a definitive answer on what's happening in terms of numbers for funerals, because there's still some debate. And again, Barry, thanks for highlighting, this is England only. There are some very, very different restrictions in Scotland, and there are also some very, very different restrictions in Wales as well, especially with the latest local lockdowns now in force in southern Wales. So please, please, please check the relevant sites, so NHS Wales and NHS Scotland, for your specific requirements. And the last thing as well is conferences and events are not taking place and are still not to have basically not to have any conferences, not to have any events in your hotels, your venues, because they are still not allowed to take place. And at the moment, that situation is not going to be reviewed for the near future. So for those of you that were hoping to start booking conferences and events as an alternative income stream, unfortunately you can't. As far as I'm aware, Nicola, yes, the plan at the moment is that restriction is going to stay in place until March 2021, as are a lot of the restrictions in here. Julian, so in terms of funerals, the wake is a rule of 6, whereas actually attending the funeral at the crematorium is a different number. In terms, so Sarah, do you want to just explain your question a little bit more?
Yeah, Luke, sorry, it was just that you mentioned work meetings, education and training can take place for up to 30.
Yeah.
But obviously then we're talking about conference and events. So as a hotelier, are you able to rent meeting room space for educational meetings or not? Is that happening within the workplace, as in the workplace of the education?
So as far as I'm aware, you can, as a hotel, rent a meeting room to someone for a work meeting, for an educational event, or for training.
Brilliant.
As
for up
long
to 30.
as long up to 30. Certainly, I do know some hotels are pitching into that and are starting to do that. I think what they mean by conferences and events is the International Security Expo at the EdExcel in London, so the much larger events that are open to the public and attract thousands of people per day.
Brilliant. Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, so generally, as long as you're following the guidance, as long as there's social distancing, and as long as you're getting them all to check in when they arrive, then you'll be fine. Again, Barry, yeah, quite right. That's for England. Scotland, it's an absolute no. So that's the end of me. So unless anybody's got any questions, I'll hand back to Robin. Nicholas, I think you've had a question. So yes, that does include the educational training for staff.
Okay. Okay, right. Thank you very much, Luke. Yeah, Barry, I don't know if it'd be a good idea for you to pop me a little line, and I'll pop something into the summary about what Scotland has differently, just so we can sort of give the right sort of proportion of cover to everybody. I don't think we've got anybody from Wales, unfortunately. Moving swiftly on, we've got a new person in the forum, Nicola, and I've given her a baptism of fire. Asked her to do a short presentation on the recent changes in the furlough, which are coming in now that they've extended it. So I'll hand over to you, Nicola, if you want.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So hi everyone. Good morning.
No, Nicola.
Nicola.
Hi.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna. I don't know. I've never shared my screen before, so I'm not sure.
Down at the bottom there.
Is that worked?
There we go.
Can you see that?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. So, yeah. Thank you and welcome. Thank you for welcoming me to the group. I'm here today on behalf of CH Hospitality Support, and I'm not really on LinkedIn with any of you at the moment. I think I'm with Robin. So yesterday we announced that I've joined Craig Healy as the director with CH Hospitality, and yeah, this is my first time at your meeting, so it's very informative. So what I'm going to cover now is just a bit of the furlough, and let's just go to the next stage. I don't know if this is going to work.
Just page forward as you would in a presentation. There you go.
Okay, so there's a statistic there from the National Institute of Economic and Social Research. Basically, ending the furlough scheme, as we all know, will be a mistake. You can see that it's currently supporting 9.5 million people, which this data is actually collated a couple of months ago when the furlough was at the peak, really. I would say it's more than 9.5 million now, and the Treasury is more than 1.7 billion in debt. I'm just going to minimise you. There you go. So again, if we're closing the furlough, it could push unemployment to 10% this year. Actually, we've gone above that. It's not just unemployment, there's redundancies, as you've just mentioned, all of the rules and regulations that hospitality are having to adhere to and restrictions. And it's not just the hospitality sector, it's many sectors throughout. Almost half of firms in the UK plan to reduce recruitment or not recruit at all over the next year. That's a scaring statistic. And yeah, many firms have reached a fork in the road. Are we going through redundancy plans, which it is going to hit sectors hard, such as aviation, hospitality and leisure. Now, I am just going to broach, I know we're looking at furlough, but I also wanted to say that lots of companies are making redundancies on a mid and senior level of management and experience. Now, I'm just going to venture slightly on the Kickstart scheme. So the Kickstart scheme is for 16-year-olds to 24-year-olds currently receiving benefit payments from the government. And what they're saying is they want employers to take on that age bracket. They'll pay 100% of the minimum wage. It's for 25 hours a week of work. The national insurance contributions will be paid, and it's for a 6-month period. But what we will see is already we've had an increase of redundancies, unemployment, as I've just said, the mid and senior experience. So let's just take hospitality in general. All of us are releasing these employees who have the most experience of benefit to our businesses. So unemployment on that level is quite high. So we're wanting to take in these younger people of that age bracket with no experience for a 6-month scheme that we've just heard that these restrictions are for the next 6 months. So at the end of the 6-month scheme, to be fair, we're going to have a whole new raft of unemployed as well between the age bracket of 16 to 24. So in 6 months' time, not to sound doom and gloom, but what's looking quite prominent there is we've got the level of redundancies that we're seeing now of our experienced staffing And we're also going to see a level of unemployment of the younger generation all hitting at the same time in this at the end of this 6 months. Am I still there? Because I've like got rid of you all. I can only see my screen. Okay, so go. So now we're looking at the job support scheme. So this is the new announcement that was made last week. So it starts on the 1st of November. It's taking over from furlough. And again, it ends on the 31st of April. It's the 6th month that ties in with what you've just been talking about. So really, the question is, what's the viability? What is viable? So they're wanting to protect viable jobs in businesses. I can read it to you, but you've all got it on your screen to read out as well. So restrictions that we're facing, a lower demand on hospitality. So it's to keep employees attached to your workforce. So they'll pay a third. If we could just look here, the government will pay a third of the hours worked up to not worked up to a cap. So with employers contributing a third. So it's not as much as they were taking on the furlough scheme. So it would be a minimum of 77% of the normal wages where the government contribution has not been capped. But again, it's what is a viable job really. Employers, it's open to all employers with a UK bank account. The pay-as-you-earn schemes can claim the grant. You don't have to be part of the coronavirus job retention scheme previously. Common sense, large businesses will have to meet a financial assessment test. So maybe that has been brought in slightly too late, because I know people have been furloughed and people have been paying cash in hand to furlough workers as well. And I think having financial assessments now, really, I think we could have done it with a bit more of that stringent testing previously. A lot of people have got away with a lot of things that they really shouldn't have, and it doesn't give us a good reputation. Have a look. So I just wanted to look at the viability study, because I think it's unfair to say that they're only going to support a viable job. So what is viable? So just looking at department analysis within an organisation, you've got all of these departments, and with due respect to all of you, you know what is viable in your business and you know what isn't. And we know that there's so many different positions within a kitchen, within sales and marketing, and how do we move forward through that? So if you're going to be paying somebody to keep them attached to your business, and to be fair, we want to keep everybody attached to our business because we want hospitality to bounce back, we want leisure to bounce back, and tourism. We really don't want to get rid of anybody, but obviously finance is the bigger picture. Then you can look at diversifying and adapting to the change. So revenue streams, it's the accommodation, it's food and beverage, and failing that, it's the looking at the refocus. And I think somebody is going to speak about this, aren't they, after me? So looking at refocusing, rebranding and recharging your organisation. Again, just looking back at the Kickstart scheme, for every person that you do take on within the 6 months, you are given £1,500 for training and setting up costs. So if we do look to the bigger picture and we do look to the end of the 6 months, for every person it's 1.5k. So you can look at refocusing, rebranding and recharging and utilising the new blood coming through. But again, it's who's training and who's taking these people on board to bring your organisation forward. That was me. That's it. Thank you. Was that okay?
Hello, sorry, I'll mute myself. I've got an house alarm going on in the background, so I'm on mute. Mark's mentioned that the viability is being challenged in the House of Commons today, so that should be interesting.
I'm sorry, Robin, I get very passionate about this because they make sweeping statements across a sector that they know nothing about at all. Now, to me, a pot washer is just as viable as a sales and marketing person. You know, you can't do one job without the other. Every position is completely viable. And for them to say we will support one but not the other, to be frank, I think it's bullshit. And, you know, we need to call them up on this. And if we don't stand up for our industry, then who will? Because 6 months down the line, a year down the line, people want to get fed. They want to go on holiday. You know, the leisure and tourism industry, it's vital for our country. And considering that we're not going to be able to go out of our areas to holiday, we need to be bringing people in and focusing on that. And every single person is viable. No one is greater than the other.
Very well said. Very well said. There needs to be a lot more pressure, I think, from the industry towards the government, because we are one of the biggest, and we will be probably one of the major operators as far as revenue is concerned as we go forward. Hate to mention the word Brexit, but I can honestly see we will be one of the few businesses that actually will survive Brexit, because if the pound drops, we'll get more visitors coming here and we'll make more money for the government. So they really have to be taking into account a bit more, I think. Julian did mention about whether you could put together an example of the job support scheme for an illustration. I suppose you haven't got something off bat now. Perhaps you could prepare something and I'll pop it into the summary when I send it out this afternoon, just to sort of see the example of how somebody would be affected now as far as the scheme's concerned. Yeah?
Yep, no problem. Mm-hmm.
Okay, anybody, any other comments?
I just want to say, Robin, sorry, it's Luke. I agree with what Nicola said. To set some context around why they've taken this approach, is they've taken the same approach that they used when having discussions with the aviation industry, which is why you saw so many staff within aviation suddenly given their essentially P45 redundancies because their roles were deemed to be surplus to requirement. So what they have absolutely done, and the only way we can get over this is all of you write to your MPs, all of you put pressure, both as individuals but as an industry, on the government, because they are using a flawed piece of logic and research when they put this scheme into place, and it's designed as a cost saving, not a business supporting I guess scheme, if I've got that right, Nicola.
Yeah, when you mentioned that people have to sit down to eat, and that's like the new governing, you must sit down to eat. I took my children to the cinema last night to watch David Attenborough's film, and it was a one-night showing. It was absolutely amazing, everybody. It was brilliant. But there were people walking around with nachos and hot dogs. And so how come the cinema industry is completely different? Why are we penalised and we're having to make all these changes, which, to be fair, are very expensive and time consuming and emotionally exhausting, yet you can go to the cinema, we weren't socially distanced, and
you should close the cinema too. You should close the cinema too at this point.
You can't have one rule for one and one for the other. It's just, it's unfair.
You should close the cinema, not open the restaurants. Unfortunately, I mean, it's a big one, but you have big numbers now in UK because of what your governments did. So unfortunately, now you have to deal with the numbers. I mean, what do you want to do? Just ignore the problem? No. Nobody's gonna fly to UK because there are no flights from States, from whatever. So I mean, it's a big argument, but of course we are penalized. In Dublin, we are on level 3 now. Ireland has this is 5 lines, and Dublin is on level 3. So the very little guests that we were having from other county, they are not coming to Dublin. So the very little piece of market that was left in Ireland, in Dublin, now it disappeared. What do you want to do? Open everything? Ignore the problem? I don't know.
Difficult times.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I have a question, if that's okay, Nicola or the group, on the I think it's a good incentive to have the £1,500 for the youngsters and or kickstart them into the sector, which can only be good news. The downside of that is, or the question really is, will the hoteliers or whoever the establishment is, will they be required to demonstrate that they have used that, let's call it a grant, to actually educate and upskill the youngsters? Or is it a case that they just bring in the headcount, take the funds and potentially don't train these people? Does anybody know?
Well, the grant is for training, onboarding, equipment, anything that you need to get that person on that seat and through the door. That's what it's utilised for. That's what it's there for. Just going by everything that we've seen for earlier this year, I don't think there'll be any kind of justification. I don't think you'll need to sit and hand your receipts across and say, oh, I did this on Monday, that on Tuesday, that on Wednesday. I don't think that they can. I just don't think they can do that. So again, it's down to your principal as an employer to say, I'm going to utilise this and do it for the right reasons and for the good of everything. But unfortunately, we can't build something in 6 months. So we can take these people on and the government are going to pay for that. Then they're going to pay the 1.5K. And then what's going to happen in 6 months, because our restrictions aren't being lifted, our movements are being more restricted. So how can we build a business that's sustainable after the 6 months? I think it's just maybe a stopgap for Christmas, perhaps, to keep.
But is this an incentive to hire new staff?
It is. It's to hire the staff in.
But who is hiring staff now? I mean, with this occupancy, who is hiring staff now? People are laid off now.
As a recruiter, me speaking now, because we're having more. If I look at construction and manufacturing, then you've got more.
Okay, maybe different that sector.
From that side of it, but certainly not within
hospitality.
No.
Let me know if you heard of somebody hiring, because.
But if you think about it as well, because we're looking at factory operatives and warehousing, all of these people are on national minimum wage, so it's more cost effective for the government to be paying that level of a wage than it would be for anything else, for example. So I can see that they are refinancing in a way that they think is better for them as well as for us. But disregarding all of that, in 6 months' time, we're not going to be any better off, are we, as an industry, because we can't employ people, we can't bring people in. So it might be good for other industries, but it's not good for hospitality.
And I think to pick up on that, Nicola, the main reason why it's not good for hospitality is you can only apply directly if you're applying to bring on board over 30 people. If you're creating fewer than 30 jobs, then you have to find somebody else who is big enough to apply on your behalf as well.
Yeah, I mean, we announced yesterday on LinkedIn that I'd joined Craig, and within about half an hour, I'd had 3 people contact me with regard to the apprentice and kickstart scheme, saying, oh, why don't you talk to me about this and we can provide you with an apprentice. I don't need you to contact me for that, but what I'm saying is they get money for that. So lots of councils, grant providers, it's their remit to fill these spaces. So they're given 50 spaces and within North East Links, and we want you to fill those 50 spaces. And in doing so, you'll get 20% of the grant, for example. So there's I feel a lot of backhanders. I don't think it's in the right interest for these people to be finding this kind of work, because no one's actually going to sit them down and say, let's look at your CV, let's look at where you want to go, let's look at career progression. It's more bums on seats, you can get the money ticking over, but at the end of the day, it's just going to make a bigger recession.
Yeah, indeed. I hate to break up this one, but we've got Kevin there and also Sarah who are waiting to do their talks today. So I think if we move on straight to Kevin, and let's hear how the events business is doing. Hello, Kevin.
No, Kevin.
Now, you need to unmute. Hello, Kevin, you need to unmute yourself.
Done it. Apologies, everyone. I was getting, I was starting to get quite involved and quite angry because it's not just the hospitality industry, but if you look at the meetings and events industry. Oh, sorry, let me get back first before I get on my soapbox. Firstly, I'm Kevin Holland, and my colleagues on here as well, Martin Dempster from Trident Hospitality, and we work with primarily independent meetings and event spaces on proactive sales. In a nutshell, that's what we're all about. So, is there a meetings and events industry left? And carrying on from Nicola's presentation and parts of what Luke was saying earlier, you know, just some quotes recently from Martin Fullard as editor at Conference News. The meetings and events industry is facing a really torrid time over the next few months. And Jane Longhurst at the Meetings and Meetings Industry Association was recently quoted as saying, the industry is teetering on the abyss. And trust me, from looking at our venues, then that's very much the case. The government have done nothing, absolutely bugger all, to support the meetings and events industry. Someone mentioned about getting in touch with the local MP. I got in touch with my local MP. It took him 5 months for him to respond, but he turned around and said, even though I'd given him chapter and verse about the meetings and events industry, he said, we've done a lot for the hospitality industry. They have no idea, absolutely no idea. And the restrictions they're putting in at the minute just don't help us at all. If we look at the value of the industry, this was published by Conference News, Martin Fullard recently, and this is the value of the meetings and events industry up to and including March of this year. That's a significant amount of revenue that's generated for the country. The job supports, looking at the people that are now, you know, potentially going to be made redundant, the industry has something like 700,000 people working in it. And that's not just people working in venues, that's suppliers, that could be outside caterers, linen suppliers, AV people, set builders, IT people, security, the whole gambit. But it's the lack of understanding of our industry. The Conservative Party conference, for example, cancelled in Birmingham effectively. We know they went online, but the local Chamber of Commerce have said, as a result of doing that, the region lost out on £23 million worth of revenue that they would have taken during that period. It is absolutely appalling. So looking at the situation at the minute, some venues have just turned around and said it's not viable for them to open with the restrictions that have been put on them. We know within our collection of venues that we work with, a substantial amount of money has been invested in making them COVID safe. I think one venue quoted that they'd spent over £100,000 on various accreditations, equipment, PPE for the staff, policies, procedures, one-way systems. They have a meeting space that will take, pre-COVID, over 500 people, but now with social distancing, it's down to about 100 people. And is that viable for a venue? You know, those venues that are open now, they also are questioning the viability of staying open. And coming back to the numbers, we do know the number of venues that are doing 30, you know, with social distancing. But again, what's happening? We have seen that a lot of our venues are now taking business that in the past they wouldn't have considered. So looking at different revenue streams, we have one conference and events centre in the home counties, which if you'd have spoken to them this time last year, would never consider taking individual and transient accommodation. They're now doing that. Before, they wouldn't have thought of taking team building activities using their grounds or weddings, although their wedding business is now, for the foreseeable future, has all dried up with the change in the recommendations. A lot of our venues, and I think the industry as a whole, are now looking at online and hybrid events with exploring all types of new technology. But for venues to survive and for the industry to survive, we all have to look at outside the box collaborations. Trident, for example, are collaborating with the lovely Jan on here today and other parties. It's got to be the way forward. Martin, can I hand over to you now?
No, you can't, Kev. I was enjoying that rant. It was good. Yes, thank you. Moving on. Having worked for both venues and agents, I've been gamekeeper and poacher, so I can see both sides. But agents have been called parasites, etc., etc. But whenever I work for general managers, they always want to go get corporate business, which might mean the company across the road from them, but the actual agent who deals with all their bookings and is actually told that they must use them all times is based 200 miles away. Some of the big groups have decided to reduce agency commission in their wisdom, but I think that's something that might change in the future. And a lot of those big groups are not even answering the phone or answering inquiries from agents. So we have to love them. Some people love them or loathe them. Well, actually, I think they're great on the whole, agencies, and they've been really struggling during this last 6 months, and some have had no cash flow whatsoever. And there's some really good people in the industry on both sides. And I think really we've had Zoom meetings over the summer, the last 6 months, Kev and I, and with conference agents and our venues. And it's been a real struggle. It's all about communication moving forward. And, you know, without their business, a lot of our venues have struggled and will struggle throughout the UK. So I think we have to treat them with respect and, you know, they're going to be important moving forward. But I've noticed the last few days or last week that the chocolates and wine visits are out, and a lot of the big groups are now saying, I know you haven't been able to speak to us for 6 months, but actually we're back now with chocolates, so everything's all right. Please send us any business you've got. Anyway, borrowing Kev's soapbox again. Again, as Kevin's just alluded to, I think we're going to have to work with agents and also with various experts, independents such as Jan, such as people in marketing, social media, AV. I mean, we're dealing with companies that are doing streaming meetings and hybrid meetings, and I haven't a clue what's going on half the time. It's going over my head about 6 feet. But anyway, we're hanging in there, and you know that's something we've got to do. And so venues to hopefully get the business coming into their venues as it's currently 30. Now, moving on from that, you know, to conclude what Kevin said and what we've said about moving forward, are things out of our control? Well, to quote a great philosopher, Vicky Pollard, yes, but no, but yes, but no. We really have no idea, do we? You know, we can't sit here and say, yes, we know what's going to happen, because we don't. But what we do control is the stuff we can do, and we need a new approach. We've got to look at business differently. We have to make changes, and what the customer wants, if it's legal and cost effective, then that's what we've got to offer. And it's a tough situation, but I think most people around the screen today have been in the industry a while, and we know that we have to adapt and change, and if we don't adapt, we'll die. And really, it's a case of, guys, you know, if we want to do the same things we've always done, then we might not be here in 6 months' time. So we've really got to move with the times, move with good people, and even old codgers like me and Kevin have had to really change the way we do things and think things. So we'll still be here in 6 months, hopefully. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. Any questions?
Can I just apologise for my rant?
No.
but no, there's no doubt that the meetings and events industry are in dire straits at the minute. And coming back to what Nicola was saying with you know, redundancies, we know that a number of the smaller agencies now have got rid of most of their teams, and it's just the agency principals. We know that the larger agencies are cutting. I was talking to one agency that have had a venue finding team of about 20, has now been reduced to 3 people. It is scary. And, you know, a number of our venues, our independent venues, are saying that unless things pick up, then, you know, I can't see them being here in 6 months' time. And,
Kevin, sorry,
Yep.
finish if you want. I had just a question. You said before that, of course, a lot of venues have spent a lot of money to have the venue itself COVID-free. I understand what you're saying to in PPE, etc. But then you said that even with the 100 people, now I think that your number, the lowest number that you can have, is 100 people. I was just asking, how can you make a room with 100 people inside COVID-free, COVID-safe?
It's not. It will never be COVID-free. It's COVID-safe. But the responsibility.
Exactly. So in my opinion, you cannot have a meeting with 100 people at this stage.
But we're not anyway, because they've moved it for 6 months, and
for 12 months, I would say.
There also appears to be a conflict in the science that the government are using at the moment. You've got Professor Vance who's turning around and saying that the cases are going to go up double on a daily basis. You've got then you've got another scientist who's turning around and saying that that's not actually the case.
Well, I mean, look at the numbers in Spain. Yesterday, I think there were 17,000. France is another 20-something thousand. Italy is low. Italy is at 2,000. Ireland is 350. That compared to the population, that it's always what you have to do. It's a lot of numbers. So it's a long, but of course we don't know too much about this virus. What I'm hoping, and I'm actually seeing, and I was questioning myself and a few other friends this evening, is that if in Spain they have 17,000 cases recorded on a daily basis, but the hospitals are managing the situation. So maybe, I'm not a scientist, I can't say, maybe the virus is not as aggressive as it was back in April, because in Bergamo, north of Italy, in February and March, with numbers that are kind of similar to what is experienced in Spain now, the hospitals, they couldn't manage, and the army had to go there to take the dead people away. And so we can't, of course, I don't know, look,
I think that's why I think that's going away from the point. I mean, the point is that you've got over 500,000 people that work in the meetings and events industry, plus the hospitality industry, and they're getting no support whatsoever. But what I'm saying is, Francesco, is that the venues and the country, the industry to move forward will have to adapt. We'll have to adapt. So with adapting, they're looking at hybrid events. So, and they're also planning for later on next year, so that some of the agents are working now on 2 scenarios with events that they're looking at. I was talking to an agent last week. They're at the minute planning a conference for a major blue chip company for 500 people. So they're looking at venues that can accommodate all of those 500 people, and this is for October 2021. So God forbid, God help us. Hopefully we've come through it. But that's option 1. Option 2 is looking at technology so that they can do that conference and have interaction by streaming as well. But the other thing is that the government are taking no interest and have no understanding of our industry. It beggars belief. They bumble from one thing to another, and we're all sitting here. My revenue is down 80% on this time last year. That's not sustainable.
I believe you. I believe you. My hotel closed in March. We reopened on the 11th of July. We have been working since 11th of July with 10% occupancy. Now, since last Friday, we're doubling on level 3. The occupancy has dropped at 4%, 5%. I'm not sure. What do you think my revenue is today based on last year? We are talking about the same numbers. We're talking about the same numbers.
But you're open. What I'm saying is that there are meetings and event spaces that are not opening because the government.
But there are a lot of hotels in Dublin that they didn't open. Sorry, Kevin. It's, we have meetings room and we are not working at all with meeting rooms.
Gentlemen, I think we're losing track of what we.
Sorry, Robin.
Here, everybody's very passionate about their own businesses, and everybody's very passionate about what's going on in the industry now. And yeah, it is very clear that everybody's suffering, and the government are almost sort of failed to acknowledge that if an events business can't do events, then it can't be viable at this moment. Yet it will be viable once the whole lockdown situation is over, and no doubt, based on book weddings that are booked for next year, it will be a resounding success. But yes, I think it's something that really needs to be taken to the government by people like UK Hospitality and everything, so that sort of like everybody gets through this fairly and squarely.
I think, can I just? I don't know if I can interrupt. I feel really bad interrupting you, Robin.
No, go ahead.
I think if we're not careful, though, as a country, we are being left behind. Now, aside from me with Craig, I'm a recruiter as well within supply chain and logistics, and I know that Antwerp, they've already organised their Excel conference, and it's advertised, and it's all online. It's in March next year, so it's an innovative. I've just got it on my phone just so I can remember the wording. It's a digital event that they've already marketed. They're already selling spaces for it, and it's already advertised and it's promoted, and that's in March next year. Now, if we're not proactive as a united sector, we are left behind, because we're listening to a government that, to be fair, they're not sure on how they're going to proceed just in this next 6 months. So really, I know the beginning question was, are we in control? Can we? Yes, but no, but yeah, but no. Well, I think it might be time that we actually look to take control on how we can move that forward and adapt and change ourselves. I mean, what we all seem to have is space. If we're not doing events and conferencing, then we've got space. So how do you utilise your space for the best? Now, just offhand, I donated blood this week. Well, it was last week, and I'm one of the rare ones. And I said, I've not been able to get an appointment. And they said to me, they had nowhere to hold their donations because the council and the government shut all council buildings. So all the leisure centres, all the places that you normally go to donate your blood and everything else, that it stopped for a good 6 months. And I'm thinking, well, I can see on my screen here how many of us have massive spaces that we could have had an opportunity not only to help, but to also gain a bit of revenue and business in the process. So it is diversifying, but I just see that we get left behind. And if countries are evolving and moving with the times, then we need to as well.
Very, very well said. I think, yeah, the message that's coming out from everything we're talking about today is the fact that businesses, although they're all strapped and they're all suffering, yes, they need help from the government, but they also need help to diversify and look forward to some kind of business during these periods. If we can move on to Sarah, because we're running quite late today, and I think Sarah's got a very good presentation on digital marketing. I'd hate to miss it. So yeah.
Okay. Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. there is nothing political in here at all, so I'm going to try and end today on a slightly positive note, and appreciate that this won't, you know, for those that aren't open or are unable to be open or whatever, this isn't going to help. But what I'm trying to focus on here are resources that most of the hospitality industry will already have, which is social media and websites, and just to look at what you can be doing, what you should be checking, just to make sure that you're making full use of them. So to go backwards, my name's Sarah Berry, for those that don't know. I'm from Simply SIG, which is an acronym for See It Grow, and we're a marketing and sales agency for the hospitality industry. So in terms of what makes a great website, there's certain things that you need to be thinking about. First, it needs to be functional. So it needs to be solving a problem for somebody, as you said, if that's finding somewhere to give blood or to have dinner with your mum and dad, whatever it might be. You're looking to solve a problem or fulfill a desire. And it needs to be easy and clear to navigate. And I think this is really important because people that are involved in the design process often think it's very easy to navigate, but it's great to get your team to have a look at your website, to get family and friends that can be honest and critical with you, just to make sure that actually they are being able to find what they're looking for. And it's really important that the content that is on your website is that your audience want to hear, not what you want to be telling your audience. In terms of it being modern, even an 18th century manor house needs a modern look in terms of the website, and it needs to be easy to update. It's really important that if you're getting a new website made, that you're talking to your developers about whether or not you're going to be maintaining it or they are, because that will also define what platforms are best to be used in terms of your knowledge. Responsiveness is not something that's new. We keep saying websites need to be mobile responsive, but it's really important that all screen sizes are tested. We recently ran an audit on a hotel which was mobile compatible, it was desktop compatible, but when it came to sort of 11-inch max screens and tablet size, it wasn't compatible. So you need to make sure that it is compatible for all sizes. And it needs to be reliable and faster, and a lot of this will be down to whether or not your images are compressed, and also reliable service. Make sure that you have a service level agreement in place with your hosting company. So I've talked about making sure it's what your guests want. Firstly, I guess one of the things that we need to be looking at is, have your guests changed? And this is highly likely in the last 6 months, even if it's just a case of them being closer to your hotel than perhaps what they would have been. So you need to make sure that you're turning up in any relevant searches. If you use your analytics on your website, you will be able to see the search terms and the keywords that people are finding you on. And it's really important that your content on your website is SEO rich. And, you know, blogs, everyone says, you know, you need to be blogging, and I would agree with that, but it is time consuming. It is about trying to find the content that you can put on those. So a great way of getting around SEO on your website is by doing a frequently asked questions page, and think about the sorts of search terms that people might be looking for, whether it's attractions to you that are COVID safe, whether it's you know, fun for the family near you, whatever it might be. Frequently asked questions obviously give you the ability to put in a lot of those keywords without having to constantly think about content for blogs. Imagery is not going away. Social media have made sure, especially Instagram, that imagery is really important for all. So you know, if you're using photographs that represent your property of 10 years ago, it's likely that there's a very different style of images that should be used now. So give that some consideration. And feature on your most popular facilities and services. One of the things within the hospitality industry I've found is that we're very good at perhaps setting up, and I'm not talking about now, I'm talking about back in the good old days, we might be putting on an event and it wasn't of interest, but we would keep flogging it to death. And rather than finding the things that we're not so good at and pushing those and trying to get people interested in them, look at the facilities and the services that are being used most and make sure that they're key on your social media, that they've got prime positions on your web space. So whether that's the rooms with the spas, whether it's your afternoon tea, whatever it might be, they need to be key features. And access to the person behind the website is really, really important. Calls to actions need to be on your website as frequently as possible without them becoming irritating. Most hotels will obviously have online booking engines now. And if you have, you need to make sure that these are seamless, make sure that your images and your descriptions on your booking engine are in line with your website. But if you don't have a booking engine, it's really good idea to look at how people are going to access your team as such within 24 or 24 hours a day, because lots of people will be wanting to speak to somebody at 10 o'clock at night or at 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever time it is that they're up and about. So, you know, perhaps an automated chat bot or something like that is worth considering if you don't have 24-hour staff. And last but not least, you need to be highlighting the benefits of using your property over and above that of your competitors. Social media, I'm sure that everyone is on social media, but again, if you're not, or if you need any help setting anything up or whatever, do let me know. I'm happy to help. Going back to our customers, a lot of people have changed platforms that they're using and the times of day that they're using them. So the first thing to do in terms of your social media is to look at your customer profile to understand whether this has changed, to find out where they are, what platforms they're on and when. You need to be attracting them with your stories, with that of things back of house. People love things about teams and what's going on back of house. And again, great images. And you need to have a call to action. I would suggest that 1 in every 3 social media posts has a call to action. So you have a website link or you have your telephone number or whatever. But what you also want to be trying to do is get into people's DMs. So if somebody comments that your afternoon tea looks lovely, you know, get into their DM and speak to them about your afternoon tea, find out where they live. Is it included free in an overnight stay? Or, you know, speak to people, get into direct messaging, because comments on pictures are lovely, but they're not going to bring in the sales. And then once people have stayed, obviously what we want to be doing is getting a testimonial. So none of that has changed in the last 6 months. We just need to look at how we're presenting that. And remember that sort of 70% of your posts need to be engaging and of interest and educating your customers or potential customers. And just to finish off in terms of social media, there's the 5 C's. If you haven't heard of the 5 C's, they're consistency, content of value, credentials, conversation, and call to action. As I said, if you know who your customer is, who they are, where they are, consistency doesn't mean that you need to be posting 7 days a week. It means that you need to be posting where it's relevant at a time that is relevant, and that might just be 2 days a week. But you need to be consistent. So think about the resource that you have and don't overcommit, because you need to be there week in, week out. Again, content of value, it's what they need to be knowing. So at the moment, obviously they need to be knowing a lot about what you're doing, what you're able to offer them in terms of safety, but also still facilities and services. The credentials come into obviously what you've done to make them COVID safe. Did you get the AA's COVID safe badge? And, you know, have you got awards for whatever it might be? And again, having conversations with them, so it takes it around to, you know, the DM again, and calls to action. And that's it really from me. Like I said, there's nothing new and shiny in there, but I've often found that actually just going back over these things really helps people to focus. If anyone is looking to review their customer profile, I have forms here that will have questions that get you thinking about it. So please feel free to contact me with regard to that. And if anyone wants to be looking at their SEO, likewise, I've got forms here if you want to be considering your SEO and doing it yourself. So happy to send those out to anyone. And that's it.
Thanks, Sarah. Definitely, I'm interested in that. Thanks.
No problem. I should get that sent out.
We are connected on LinkedIn, so I will ask you if you don't remember.
Perhaps we can do something through the summary as well, Sarah, or at least have some contacts through there. People get back to me and pass them on to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you very much for that. It's all good information. It's all very necessary. I noted one point in there about respond to your TripAdvisors and your comments in all those. It's what really it does sort of make a difference to your image. As long as you respond with the right comments.
Would you reply to all the comments, Robin? I mean, when you have, let's say, 20 positive comments, do you think that, let's say, thank you every time is okay? Because there are some venue that because there are some venue where you can get 1,000 of positive now, even with Google, with just the stars. Would you reply to all of them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a really short thanks very much.
Sorry, I would just kind of disagree with that, because I think that if you just say thank you to all of them, then it becomes generic and robotic. But apparently, according to some reputation management companies, there is a certain percentage you should reply to. Obviously, all the negative reviews.
Yeah,
you really
definitely,
definitely
those, yes,
but
definitely
also
to the negative, yeah.
You have to also remember that you can use your review sites to market and advertise certain aspects of do certain promotions. So, but to answer your question, you don't necessarily have to answer 100% of your reviews, but I would recommend that you at least answer 80% of them. Good. Including the stars on Google as well. As I say, you should use Google, but you don't just thank them. I mean, you can thank them, and then you can
just
promote.
like, maybe just say no. No like, no.
Don't like them, because I'll go bankrupt if that's all you want to do. But no, but you should be using Google and TripAdvisor to promote direct bookings, for example, because you can. So don't underestimate the value of reviews, and I'll be happy to talk about this.
If I was able, I would contact all on the personal email of the reviewer.
I know, but that's very good, but that's limiting your reply to that one person. You have to remember that Google, for example, has 3 billion hotel searches a month just for hotels. So when you answer to publicly on those review sites, you're actually not answering just for the guests who left the review,
of course,
you're answering to the wider audience.
Of course.
True. Anybody got any more questions for Sarah, or any comments for Sarah on that?
I sent some on chat.
Business need to ensure that they have sales staff to communicate with clients, securing the business during times of changing markets. Staff need to change their communication techniques.
Yeah, that's very true. I've written blogs.
That was me.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's quite right, Gillian. I've written blogs on this, which are on LinkedIn, just in terms of making sure that the reception team are fully on board in terms of sales techniques and things. And I think it's really important, like you say, that people that are doing social media need to understand sales as well as the marketing side of things.
Because that's the sad thing at the moment. It's a lot of the sales and marketing staff that are being stripped out of hotels.
Yeah.
And you need to ensure that there's someone there. A lot of the pressure is actually put back in general managers at the moment from the businesses that I've been speaking to, but having a receptionist, because that's what you need. You know, if someone's going to phone up your hotel and they want to make a booking or want to ask a question, you need to make sure that phone's getting answered. But if staff are dealing with travel trade, it's a very different conversation to those that are leisure guests or the other way. And even
definitely, Gillian. I was for a while. I was managing a Twitter account of one of the property where I was a front office manager. The things that I had more compared to the marketing team that was also present in the establishment, in the hotel, is that I had the real event of when it was going on. I mean, I was able to tweet the conference that was in the hotel that day, or the guest that was in the hotel that day, and that was good for the engaging and to be present in the hotel.
Stuart,
sometimes the marketing agency or the marketing team, if any, in the hotel is not in the position to do.
Very good.
Sorry, Robin.
Okay, Stuart, you've put something in there, and I'm not exactly sure what you're saying. Could you sort of confirm what you were?
I was asking Sarah Berry if it's appropriate to be always on campaign as opposed to spreading your social media cost across a various, you do different one month, different next month, etc., etc. My experience is always on gives you a better penetration through search engine optimization.
Yeah, I would probably agree. I have to say my partner is the techie one that understands all of this, but I think it is finding where your customers are, and this is where we sometimes go wrong, is not actually understanding where to find our customers. So if we've used, for instance, Facebook, we're continuing to use Facebook, and that might not be giving you the return if that's no longer where your customers are. So it is a case of going back, finding out where your customers are.
No, I'm assuming that you are measuring cost per lead and cost per acquisition, yeah? Let's take that as a given, yeah?
Yep.
My question is some people will move around thinking it gives them the best return on investment. My experience has been is you keep things where they are, and consistently you will add better penetration through that process, as opposed to constantly thinking, well, I've got to jump here today, I've got to jump here tomorrow, etc., particularly from a distribution perspective through SEO. And I did ask another question about Soci/Hootsuite. So going back to Francesco's point, absolutely answer every single thing you possibly can on social media, because trust me, that gives you the better penetration you can get. But you can buy products that allow you to do that. Soci, Hootsuite, etc., etc. These are products that are commercial products you should definitely look to investigate in, because the easy thing in life to do today is to stand still and do nothing and blame everybody else for your circumstances. My problem is I've been around for 42 years in the hospitality business, and I've seen a lot of things change. Now is the time to invest in your people, invest in your technology, and look to the future if you can afford to do that. But standing still and worrying about other people's decisions is going to make you paralyzed and freeze.
I've seen people completely paralyzed and freeze.
Exactly. So what you've got to look to the future is, and one of the things this industry needs to do is get its act together, start to think about the future of how we can work together. There's been more collaboration over this period than I've ever seen in my life, which is fantastic.
Yeah, true.
And to lose this opportunity that we have today to work together for the future. Of course, the government doesn't know what we do. We're the third biggest industry. Even the person that represents us is a backbencher. So to be quite honest with you, we need to push that forward for the future and learn from where we've got to. 4 different governments making 4 different decisions. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work for our industry.
I mean, it's going to be a completely it's gonna be a completely new reality, in my opinion. I was just thinking the office work, but are we here in Dublin? There is in 1 kilometer square, not even the headquarters of Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, Airbnb, and so on and so forth. Now, all these people that they were my customers as well in the bar, more than hotel, or etc. Are they gonna come back? Whenever everything is over, are they gonna come back to the office?
Probably not in the numbers that you were having before. I think most head offices will be a hub for office workers to go to on occasions, to have major meetings, to have trainings, to have all that sort of thing. And I think, especially with the ones you were just quoting, like Google, LinkedIn, they're all people who are on the agenda of working from home. You know, they're sort of promoting that sort of
even when the company, even when Google is gonna say, okay, guys, you can all come back to the office. A bunch of these people, they will say, wait a second, we have worked the last year from home, and we're actually sometimes being even more productive. So what's the point? So at that stage, Google is gonna say, okay, so we don't need 5 buildings in Dublin, we need 1. So,
but you see, that's where the other businesses, no offense to you being in the center of a city, but that's where the businesses who are in local urban areas, where sort of in residential areas, can make that impetus to say, well, rather than you working from home, why not come and have a coffee in an atmosphere which is lots of other people working around you, not in your business, but there are other people, so you can
definitely. I mean, I've seen a family that used to live in the city center in Dublin, relocated in Cork, Sligo, Donegal, because the apartments there is 1/3 of what it costs in Dublin. They maybe are from there because there are a bunch of Irish people that are from different county, moved in Dublin because they're working here, but now they don't need to be in the office anymore. My wife is working home now, the other room. She doesn't need to go to the office. We can move on.
I have to say, I was looking for an office with Craig. Now, literally, this is going back 2, 3, 4 weeks. And it's ongoing now. And I'm based in North Links, where on the cusp of North East Links, and trying to find an office is like gold dust. I thought there'd be loads. Honestly, I thought I'd be cherry picking. I could really, really go to town on this. And the reality is, surprisingly, they're not as available as you would think. People are not giving up their offices. And as much as, yes, we are working from home and we are advised to work from home. Hey, I'm working from home like you are. People still need people. People still want the interaction. And I think it's not going to be a shocker. People will go back into the workplace and there'll be a healthy balance between the two. So it's not forever. Whatever's happening right now, as weird as it
the
is,
percentage of those people that will prefer to go back to work. I know that dads are usually the one they want to escape, but
I'd come back to what we were talking about before, and sort of part of the problem is that there is misunderstanding and of the government regulations, but there are venues that can accommodate up to 30 people for meetings and training. But what we found with our venues, and I think Jan will back us up, and I think the same with some of her venues, is that the city centre properties, and from my case in the centre of Birmingham and centre of London, are losing business hand over fist. But those that are out for example, we work with Madingley Hall near Cambridge, and that's 13 miles from the centre of Cambridge. It's got its own car park, and they're just the business, their inquiries are growing and growing and growing because people don't want to use, they still want to get together, as Nicola said, but they don't want to travel on public transport. So they're looking at rural-based venues to hold their trainings and their small meetings, etc., etc.
Exactly. I think that is the move forward for a lot of these events areas at the moment, to push on that, to actually be able to offer that sort of environment for people, companies that are working from home, just to be able to get together for, you know, team building and all the rest of it. And I think that's the possible way forward for a lot of these industries. Perhaps I'm skeptic, but I'm in a lot of networking associations outside the hospitality industry, and there's a clear idea that although people will return to head offices in big cities, there's a large majority who will work from home or have sort of a more external operation. So it's something, as we've talked about in the whole of this session, it's a case of adapting. The whole industry is adapting, just as all the other industries have had to adapt, especially the office industry with working from home and everything. And it's something which has brought about a change which was predicted for 10 years from now. They said 2030 would see mass working from home, and it's come straight through to this year. I just want a good point. One of the things that I do a lot when I work with hotels is I get the reception teams to do the admin work, so that and one of the things I find, that means that you've got more people on reception. If they have to take somebody on, they have more people on reception to actually cover the guest service. And it's the same, we're talking about social media. Those key people on the front desk who know a lot about your business, but also have downtimes within the day are crucial to be able to operating productively and also cover a lot of these jobs we're talking about, social media, sort of, you know,
Blogging. One say, Robin, one say, you just need a strong front office team.
Yeah, exactly. And you can almost sort of, so you can cover a lot of this work that's sort of more of a standard work. So never look down on your front office team.
Never.
More work. Anyway, I think we've had a very passionate meeting today. There's been said. I don't think the government's come out very well from most of what's been said, unfortunately. Well, this is it. And hopefully, is Peter still around? Perhaps he can help to get some of this message through to UK hospitality about what the business is suffering. I know he was on here earlier. I'm not sure if he's still around, but I'll have a chat with him afterwards anyway. And thank you all for joining. Next forum will be in 2 weeks' time. And hope you all have a good week coming forward.
You too, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
Talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Enjoy your rest of the night. Bye.
Thank you, Robin.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all. Take care. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Rob.
Bye.
See you all and see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks. Bye,
Yeah.
Barry.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye,
Robin.
guys. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Robin.
Bye. Signing off.